So today is the 28th of June and it's about 6 o'clock in the evening. All my staff have gone home and I'm here on my own in the nursery. In the summer months, because it is so hot during the day, I choose to work in the evening. So I do the office work during the daytime, and in the evening when it's cool, I water the greenhouse and I do my little projects. So what have I got for you today? Many of you must be wondering why I am able to work throughout the year. Well, if you are a bit sensible, you can understand how plants can behave. So although I'm going to be working on plants and also dealing with the roots, I will not be too harsh or excessive with the roots, and I can get away with it. So what have I got here? Look at this. I've got all these lovely plants, and I just got them out of the nursery beds. They were growing in the nursery beds and they are all looking very good. What are these? These are hornbeams. They are European hornbeams and they've just been grown straight and tall. And what can you do with these straight and tall trees? Well, the answer is yes, you've guessed it. We can make them into a lovely forest. So let's see what we have here, and we will proceed by making a conventional type of forest. And for that I will use a typical mica pot. Because the root balls are quite compact, I know that I can put them in the pot, mound the soil, and I will be able to do an instant forest. So let us choose some trees. They are, as I say, nice and tall with beautiful side branches and ideal for making a forest. So I don't want it that tall, so let's cut it here. And that is the ideal shape of the tree in a forest. So we'll put them all together in here and see how we go. I will choose several trees, different sizes, different heights. They've all been grown in these trays and they've been standing on gravel, so the roots have meshed together. That can be easily sorted out. Hornbeams are such vigorous trees. If you remember the videos I did when we were digging trees out with the great big digger, they are so vigorous that they make lots of height and the roots go deep in the ground and they will thicken very fast. Now these have just been standing on the gravel for 1 year and the roots have all got completely entangled at the bottom. We've got to take them out by cutting the roots now. But within the pot, there is sufficient roots to sustain the tree. This is a beautiful tree, look at it. So nice and well branched. And in fact, I don't need it all. I can just cut it there. It's virtually perfect, look at that. Perfect tree for a group. Slightly curving out. So because this is curving that way, I'll put it on the left-hand side. And you see the roots are coming through the bottom there. I need to cut these to get it out of the pot. Now because there is sufficient root inside this pot, cutting these external roots won't matter a bit. I know it will survive. And all I need to do is tease it out a little bit like that. Now this one is maybe curving that side as well. I can use this one too. You see how compact the root ball is? Perfect. That's 3. I don't like to prepare in advance too much because I want to show you literally everything that I do. Now the tree come out. Now this tree is forked in the middle, so what am I going to do with this? Because this is nice and slim, getting a nice taper, I'll take off that thick branch there and I'll use it like that. So that's the other tree. Now I've got 3 so far. This is number 4. Let's get all these roots. Look at the massive roots underneath. They've all just gone through these trays and got themselves embedded into the soil. I have to get it out. There is so much going on in our nursery that I meant to do these in the winter time, and I never got around to doing it. But as I say, I'm going to do it right in the middle of summer, and as long as I'm not going to cut too much root or do too much teasing, it should be okay. I'm going to, in the next few days, do a video to show you all the projects that I've done in the past, just to show that not all of them have died. No, in fact, none have died. Some of them may have lost a couple of branches, but I will show you the results of all the work that I've done, just to show you, because I know many of you are skeptical and don't believe that what I do always survives, but believe you not, I'm going to show you everything, and I don't think anything has died. In fact, they've done so well you will not believe what you see. Everything is vigorous here, everything is vigorous. Just the activity of taking the plants out of the tray is a meditative process for me. And I'm thinking about what I'm doing. Sometimes on television programs, everything is pre-prepared. And I sometimes feel that that may be too artificial. Now I've come across something quite interesting here. Look what I found. Inside this pot, the squirrels have put a horse chestnut, and the little horse chestnut is growing in the same pot. We have a lot of problem with squirrels. Not only do they hide the acorn and conker into the pots, but they also chew the bark of some of the trees, especially our large trees like the zelkovas and beech. They love chewing the bark and they destroy the trees. So I'm not a great lover of squirrels. So we're going to, because these trees are going that way, I may make them splay out a bit. Like so. Can you see I'm getting a feel for it? There you go. Alright, the next thing I will do now, I know where I'm going, is to prepare the pot. Now this is only a mica pot and there are some holes here, so I will put some wires through it because I like tying the trees together. If you tie the trees, then they won't fall apart and you have much better control of the positioning. So I will probably put about maybe 3 pairs of wires. The wire I'm using, some of you very kindly asked me to refer to the size of wire. This is 1.5 millimeter wire. So I think 1.5 sometimes 2mm if you're making trees with a very big pot. You can use 2mm, but I think usually 1.5 I find quite adequate. So these wires are going to just be used for securing the trees together once they've been positioned in the pot. Right, so that's three wires only. That means there's 1, 2, and 3. So there are 6 ends popping out, and this pot has altogether 6 holes. So I'll get some mesh, and I'll put some mesh at the bottom. So bear with me while I get the mesh. So this is the mesh I'm going to use. I'm very fond of using this type of mesh. This is just mesh that is used for, I think they said it's the fly netting, to keep house flies out of windows and out of the house. Are used for that purpose. So you can adapt and use whatever you like. Of course, now the Japanese and Chinese are making proper plastic mesh for bonsai pots, so you can buy that as well. But I am a great believer in improvising, and there was a time I remember during my very, what I would say, frugal days, I used to go to the vegetable markets in London, and I used to get the onion bags. They used to sell onions in great big plastic bags, which were net bags, and I used to use the netting from that. So I used to really improvise a great deal. So it just shows that you don't always have to use the best things. Anything can be used as long as it works. So how do I go about putting this group together? Let me just get some of these other trees out of the way so it's not distracting you. Now there's a mess of trees here, so I will begin by using what we call the tallest tree or the principal tree. The principal tree is what defines the group. Once you get the principal tree in position, the rest will follow. So that's how that's going to stay. I'm also going to top it up with a bit of soil, and I'm now using just ordinary garden compost, because these young groups, they grow in virtually any soil. I find that it's only the large bonsai that you have to use proper bonsai soil. So young plants don't need special soil. And the next one, see, I haven't disturbed or cut any root at all. I'm just putting it like this and see how it works. Now this one is a tall one. I can put that at the back as well. Now I'm going to, as I proceed, link the different trees together, because I know that this is almost the right position for those trees. If it needs to be changed, I will change it. And there's another one there. I've always reckoned that making a forest group is literally like arranging flowers. Flower arranging. If you are good at flower arranging, I know some of you ladies love doing flower arranging, you will have the aptitude for making a forest group. It is so easy. So easy. I was quite amused by a comment someone made. I was watching the comments on that video I did with Teemill when he was doing the Penjing type landscape, but you know, doctored to our contemporary style. And they said that in her club, they show the beginners or make the beginners do Penjing or landscapes, because that's the simplest thing. to some extent that is correct, but you still need a little lot of artistic skills. I think she meant that you don't have to do much wiring and all that. So it's true. Making these little groups is literally child's play. Look at that, ideal shape for a tree in a forest. I'm trying to make the trees different heights so that there is some variation. You usually put the shorter trees at the back to give perspective so that it looks as if the trees are receding into the distance. Like when you do a painting, you put the short trees at the back, or you paint short trees at the back so that it looks that they are far away in the distance. I'm not a painter, but I can see the point. So I've got 3 and 4, 7. I try 2 more to make 9. And I know some of you will jump in and straight away criticize me. But Peter Chan says you don't have to use odd and even numbers. No, let's see what happens. I reckon you can get away with that. That's 7. I could use 8. Chinese lucky number, 8. But 8 in Chinese is pronounced part, P-A-R-T, part. Very lucky number. In Hong Kong, I remember when they used to sell the number plates, anything with 8 fetched great price. So that is 8 trees. How does it differ? If I keep 7 trees, it looks like that. If I put 8 trees, it looks like that. 8 trees perfectly acceptable, no problem. Very lucky, number 8. Although I don't believe in it. Okay, 8, there's still space in that tray. Let's take another of these trees. I don't want to mix a conker tree in it. Another common question I keep getting asked is, can you use different species in the same group? Yes, you can. You can and you cannot. You've got to be, I think, a bit sensible. The reason why I wouldn't recommend it is because if you use different species, they may grow at a different rate. So the trees which are more vigorous, or the species which is tending to be more vigorous, could dominate the group and could spoil the group. So for that reason, I think using different species may not work. But I think the more important reason why I wouldn't recommend using different species is that it may look odd. If you try to put maples into here, it will look a bit odd. Now let me deal with this first. I'm trying to make it slightly tapering that side. This is all Zelkova. It doesn't look bad. Let's move the camera a little bit. I will get some maples and see how it works. So give me a minute. I'm going to take this group apart and put some maples in. So let me resume. I have brought here one larch, Japanese larch. If I were to put the larch there, you can see straight away, it doesn't look quite right. The foliage is so different that it will look distinctly odd. How about if I try some oak trees? They're also deciduous. Alright, the color of the oak trees are similar. It might work. There's an oak tree there. You can hardly notice it. It doesn't look odd because the color is the same and the leaf shape and size, okay, fairly similar. I might be able to get away with it, but again, I think it will look strange. I'm not saying it won't work, but somehow I don't feel it does work. How about putting some maple trees? Okay, these are maple trees. Now, you see the leaf is quite different. The leaves are different. And if I put some red maples in there, I think it'll again look a bit strange. In the autumn, you'll notice the color difference because they will turn red. So, why not? I will do this group just as an experiment because a lot of people ask me, why can't you use different groups? So, for the heck of it, favorite expression of mine, I will put some maples in this group to see how it works. As I've always preached that if you don't try, you won't know. So let's do it because some of you have asked me if it works or not. So let's put it and see if it works. Let's put it in a more prominent place. Put the maple in the front. Why not put an oak tree for good measure? Put an oak tree as well. So I've got 3 varieties of trees. Oak, hornbeam, Japanese maple. Put a bit of a red one too. Why not? There's a green maple there. You notice I haven't bothered about counting the number of trees. I've definitely not counted the trees. I don't know how many there are. I put it in the side. What if I put it in the middle? It might look a bit odd. Might not. I'm trying to be as artistic as possible. Okay, I think it's a bit too much. I'll take that one out. Put the maple there. So I've got here now 3, 4, 6, 8 hornbeams, 3 maples, and 1 oak tree. Why don't I put another oak tree? 2 oak trees. No, yes, there's 1 oak tree. I think it's a bit much, but not to worry, we'll try that. It's only an experiment. It's only an experiment. I know the purists will slate me for it, but since this is an experiment and because people have asked me, this has turned out to be an experiment in using different types of trees in the same group. Maple, hornbeam, and oak. 3 different species of trees in the same group planting. And we're going to see if this will work or not. There you go. And I'm now going to tie the trees in carefully so that they don't fall out. And then I will add soil to it. So this is what we call being absolutely creative as you go along. I started off by just showing you what I'm going to do in the middle of summer by making a hornbeam forest, but I've ended up with an experiment using different species in the same group. a question that keeps cropping up, especially among people who are fairly new to bonsai with no inhibitions, and they've always wondered why people can't use different species. So, as I say, I'm not a great lover in using different species, because from experience I know that it doesn't always work, but I'm going to experiment. And because I'm from a scientific or engineering background, I've always kept an open mind. Those of you who are engineers or scientists will recognize that experimentation is very important. Unless you experiment, you never know what works and what doesn't work. So I've now done that. So how do I complete it? I'm now just going to gently tease the roots. Just gently tease the root ball, not tease the root, just teasing the root ball. And then I will fill the rest of it with soil. I've tied the trees very loosely. I haven't tied it tight. All the trees are tied very loosely together so they don't get pulled out. And during the growing season, I will continue to check to make sure that they don't strangle the trees. I don't think it should, because we are now almost into July. And there's only like 3 more months of growing season, so the chances of it strangling are very slim indeed. All I have to do is make sure that this is well watered, and it should be well on its way. I haven't got moss because we've had such a hot summer. There's very little moss around. So this is a forest group with 3 species, hornbeam, oak and Japanese maple, all in the same pot. And how many trees have we got? 3, 3, 6, 4, 10, 10 and 3, 13, lucky 13. 13, sapsang, 13 in Chinese. Anything with a 3 is very lucky, so 13 is a lucky number to the Chinese. So there's a group with 13. I will just water it in. This is my watering can. I can use a hose pipe or whatever. And I'll have to water it several times because some of the soil is going to wash inside, some of it will wash out as well. So there you are, I have this group. It didn't take very long. I'm now going to switch the camera to show you close up. So have a look. This is what I produced in literally not even half an hour, I don't think. And all the trees are well spaced. I know that the maple at the end is too tall. Ideally, I should cut it to about here. But I let it grow to pull the sap up, and when the side shoots come, I will then reduce the height of that one. The other trees at the back also are a bit tall. I may cut that one there. So the overall shape is roughly conical. So that is the general idea. And an instant forest produced in about half an hour. It's not bad, I think. And I've experimented with 3 different types of trees in the same group. So if you look closely, there's oak leaves there, hornbeam, maple leaves, and in the autumn the color should be different. So I will show this again later on in the year to see how it progresses. So this is going to be an experiment in using different species in the same group. I know I should have put more maples. Ideally, if you want a really thoroughly mixed group, it should be like 5 hornbeams, 6 maples, and maybe another 3 or 4 oaks to give it proper mixture and balance. But this is for starters, and we will see how this progresses. Now these trees here also look very, very strong. I'm also going to make another group with this. I may not use the proper bonsai pot. I will probably use one of these seed trays and put it in that, because once they've meshed together, I can then put it out on a piece of slate. And I'm going to do that also. So this is the second part of the hornbeam forest planting exercise. And what have we here? I've now taken these trees out of the pot. I've got, if I can just show you, I'll take the camera away and show you. These are the trees that I've got here. You can see there are lots of them. I'll count it in a minute. And I've still got to just separate a few trees, take them out of the pots, because they have been very vigorous. If I can show you, the roots come through the pots like this. And in fact, this is what I got out of some of the pots. These were the tangled roots that came out of the bottom of the pots, and I had to cut it off. I spent about half an hour cutting them off. So I've just got a few more that I will just show you what I did. So I've taken most of the things off, so I'm just cutting the rest out of the pot. I mentioned to you earlier that I put these young trees on a gravel bed, and they've been growing in this gravel bed for the last 2 or 3 years. And the roots have just gone through the pots and into the gravel bed. And each tree is nice and strong like that. That's a new leader coming there. I cut that. So this is a classic shape of tree, perfect for a group. So I left 3 that I would show you, because although I've cut the large massive roots off, there are still some roots there. And because I don't want to destroy these plastic pots, I keep emphasizing that I try to save as much as possible for 2 reasons. There's no reason to waste, because even a little pot like this, they cost money to buy. So why waste it? And now that we are so conscious of plastic waste, all the more reason to save on plastic. So I use each of these pots maybe 5-6 times over. Nothing ever gets wasted. Nothing ever gets wasted here. So I've saved the pot. I can get it out carefully. There's a perfect root ball there, and a perfect shaped tree. See, when it was younger, we cut it over there. So a new leader started growing, and then I cut it again there. So I have a choice of heights, and that's a perfect shape for the tree in a forest. And one more last one to show you again how vigorous the roots are. Look at the thickness of the root that came out of the pot from there. Look at the roots here. So these are all going to be cut off. I've got to use a root cutter to cut it, because even the secateurs can't cut it carefully. I want to save the pot, so that's what I'm going to do. Believe you me, a lot of people still laugh at me trying to save these pots. They think that, running a nursery can probably afford to waste some of these, but that was not the point. So, let's get it out of this pot carefully, and I can reuse that pot, and that tree is perfect. There you are. So, at first I was going to use the seed tray to plant it in, but because I've just had a quick count. I'm just counting it. The biggest ones are these, and there's 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18 of these trees. 18 trees. That would make a beautiful group. Again, I'm not concerned about whether it's odd or even. I don't want to use 17 or whatever. I will use all the 18 if I can. So I usually choose the thickest one, and the thickest one is almost as thick as my thumb. Look at it, really thick. So I would say that these hornbeams are about 8 years old, at least 8 to 9 years old from seed. So we will put these together. I usually begin by choosing the thickest ones, because the thickest ones are the ones which are most prominent and become most noticeable. Not necessarily the tallest ones, but the thickest ones. Some of them, if they're short, they can go this side. So now that we've found the principal tree is usually the thickest and possibly the tallest one. And then we'll keep the tall ones towards the middle and the shorter ones at the side. So that is the general idea. I've used a proper mica pot. These lovely mica oval pots are ideal for making forest groups. I've put some wires through. I put 4 pairs of wires through to hold it. And flower arranging exercise, let's just put them together. Nothing to it. And hopefully I might get a customer for it, because I've found, I think I've told you before, I don't know why it is, people, especially those who are not familiar with bonsai, they seem to love the groups much more than ordinary single specimen trees. And they always say to me that they look so natural. So I have a feeling that once I've made this, this will literally sell in next to no time. Many of those trees that I did in the winter using the juniper and the cedar groups, I've already sold a couple of those because people kept worrying me to buy them. So although I wanted to keep it to show you the after effects or the end result, they insisted on buying it. So I reluctantly sold it. I really reluctantly sold it. I love making these tall groups. So these trees are grown tall for a specific reason, for making groups. If I wanted to make them as individual trees, I would probably cut them to about 6 inches high and make them branch from quite low. But you notice that most of these are branching quite high. And I'm putting the root ball as it is, complete. I'm not disturbing the root at all, just putting it in. I know the roots will spread, and it doesn't matter, because as they get older, the roots will mesh together, and that'll be it. I'm propping it up a little bit with soil. I try to get each of the trees in a roughly conical shape. And you can now see why, when you make a forest group, they don't need low branches. They just need to be just tall trees, and it will work. So again, the general principle is to have the top high, sloping to the sides. So I've already put 16 trees, 2 more to go. Now this poor tree, the top has died, so I'll cut this top there. This is one of the short ones. And the short one I can probably put on the extremities on the side. Here. Like so. I'm putting them slightly slanting upwards. Now this is very tall, so this tree was cut over here. New leader grew there. I don't need all the height and can cut it down to about here. So this tree is going to be like so. And that is all the 18 trees used up. And I'm just going to tie them around with the wires I've used again. I've used 1.5 millimeter wire. 4 wires I put in because this is a very long pot. This pot must be about, I would say, 28 inches long. About 70 centimeter, I think, in new money. I'm just looping the wire around a little bit and try to loop all the trees so that they don't get dislodged or pulled out. You don't have to tie it in, but it's just safer to tie it in because they can get easily knocked out. I do check in 6 months or a year to make sure that the trunks are not getting strangled. Although I've made the tree from the other side, I'm looking at the back side, or the non-viewing sides, not the back side, I'm afraid. There's a front or viewing side and a back or the non-viewing side. The middle one has not been tied. Now let me just put some soil. I will even use some of the old soil. No harm in using it, leaves and all. So as you can see, I'm a very frugal person. So here I've gone back to the traditional method of just using single species. Now, although hornbeams have got quite large leaves, like most deciduous trees, if you keep them pot bound or don't root prune them too often, like these, they were in those pots for most of their life, and I've only just taken it out of pot after 4 years. So they've been growing in these pots, so they're completely pot bound, so their leaves have become relatively small. I'm just going to prop them up so that they stand properly. Sorry if I've not looked at the camera very much, but unlike flower arrangers, they arrange from the back and work with their hands coming right round. I can't do that. Very difficult. I might try it on another occasion, but I think this works, so as long as it works, that's fine. So this again is ordinary garden compost. This is the base compost we use for mixing our soils. Again, with large groups like this, you can make small groups of 4 or 5 on one side and then have another group and then another group. So you can have like subgroups with the large group, but this is just one composite group. I think after I've arranged it, I've got to firm the soil in so that they all stay more or less intact. I can trim some of the branches in a minute. Although there are 18 trees, it's not massive. I've made groups which are 4 feet tall. So this is by no means a large sized group. It's just that there are a lot of trees. So 18 trees. I'm not bothered about conforming to the odd and even number. How will it make any difference whether it is 17, 18, 16? The eye just cannot tell. As long as it looks right, it's fine. Sometimes when you set out to make one side the viewing side, it may turn out that the back side is better than the front side, or the non-viewing side, what you thought was the non-viewing side may turn out better than the actual viewing side. So that's how the cookie crumbles, as they say. I will show you a close-up in a minute when I've made it. So I've tried to keep the stems fairly bare because forest groups don't have to have long branches, they're short branches, and in the winter when they have shed their leaves, this will look even more spectacular. Again, you can imagine I don't have moss at the moment because the weather's been so dry. There's no moss at all on the nursery, but when we have a shower of rain it might reappear and this will look perfect. I will show a follow-up of this in the autumn and I'll cover it with moss and show it to you again. I'll try not to sell this group because I think it's turned out quite well. And again, how long did it take? Hardly any time. So making groups is really fun, really fun. This is the non-viewing side or the back side. I've just made a compact single group without trying to make a subgroup here, subgroup there. I think it works. It's slightly off center with the tall tree on the right hand side and then sloping this side. Now if I can just stop the camera, I think that's complete. I will now take a close-up. So here we are. This is the complete group. I don't think it even took 20 minutes to do. 18 trees altogether. Hornbeam group. The apex is slightly off center to the right and then sloping down on either side. You can see all the trees, and if you freeze the playback you can probably count the trees to see that there are in fact 18. I'll have a quick count: 5, 6, 3, 9, 11, 13, 15, 18 trees altogether. So there you go. Groups always look nice in oval pots, and because the pots that the trees were originally growing in were only like 4 inches deep, with slight mounding, I didn't have to disturb any of the roots. So if I water it and keep it growing, it will grow straight away, I can assure you. And in the autumn, I'll show this to you again. I will probably have to trim it, no doubt, about twice between now and the autumn. In the next 3 months, I'll be trimming it twice. And in the autumn, it will have a lovely golden color. And so there you are. I've reinforced again the teaching you how to make a group of plants. So if you live in the tropics and have ficus, I'm sure you can use ficus. Although I'm sure there are other sorts of trees with leaves of this size. The leaves do get smaller, I can assure you. And you can just play around and make these lovely groups. So I won't appear in the camera again. I hope you've enjoyed this exercise of showing you how I made 2 groups using predominantly European hornbeam. And I hope you've enjoyed this little learning process. There you go.